Welcome to another episode of the Gain Momentum podcast, focusing on timeless lessons from global industry leaders about how to grow and scale a business in hospitality, travel, food service, and technology. I'm Jason Emanis, here with my co-host, Adam Mogelonsky. Adam?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm good.
All right.
Our guest today is co-founder and CEO of Avvio and chief evangelist of SHR Group, Frank Reeves. Frank, how are you?
Hey, I'm very good, thank you. How you doing?
Well, thank you. Adam, why don't you take it away?
So, Frank and listeners, our lesson for today that we're going to focus on is what we can learn from Frank about growing and scaling a business, framed around four key questions. Frank, the first question is, when it comes to scaling a business, what is the single piece of advice you would give entrepreneurs from your perspective as a professional in hospitality technology?
That's a big question, Adam. It's hard to find the right way into that. I think I generally want to talk about team and culture in that sort of scale up stage. I mean, startup businesses can run for a period of time on, the energy and the dynamism of the founder or the founders. But I think when you get to the point where you're really established and you're looking for that those scale up dynamics, I think that really is a team sport. I think the general sort of area that I want to discuss here is definitely around team and culture and probably trust. And I think trust is more, you got to be more than just trusting of your people. I think those people should have examples of how you trust them, right? It's not just you hire people because you think, okay, I respect you and I could see you in the market as a representative or an ambassador or evangelist to my business. I think people at this stage of a company's journey should feel and have daily or weekly examples and know that they're trusted and have autonomy. I think it's only with a team and the culture that sort of spins out of those sort of dynamics that you get the sort of energy and momentum that a company would need to go about that scale up.
Yeah, I think trust builds momentum. Nothing better than trust to build momentum, but can be a hard one. I mean, I don't know if you've got a practical example you can give us. Just like, we do this one thing and we continue to build on trust.
I mean, we've learned a lot. I think over the years, Avvio was going between 2002 and the end of last year when we came together through an M&A transaction with SHR. So, I feel like I've learned a bunch, and it's in the area of hiring and firing, who you hire and how you decide whether people are working and really part of the culture, and then what your culture is. And I think to a certain extent that's organic. I don't know that there's a real silver bullet, but I think the kind of stuff that gets you to good culture a lot easier is downstream of trust. People that you respect. You shouldn't hire people that I think fall short of that bar, that you trust and that you do value and would gladly have representatives of your business. And I think if you can create the dynamics of sort of team and collaboration around people like that, then I think you just you foster at least, the key ingredients for a culture where people trust one another and go that extra mile. Because you need so much more than, the 9 to 5. You need hustle and you need all those great things that people would really sort of fall on their sword for one another, not necessarily always for the business, but for one another, and wouldn't let their colleagues, wouldn't let their friends down. They'll always go that extra mile. So I think hiring and firing, that's just something we became better at. I think once we realized who we were and, what we were screening for, and we definitely had this notion of we want to be super innovative. We want to be dynamic and always entrepreneurial and always sort of challenging and being challengers, but not for the sake of just doing those things, right? We are ultimately very accountable to hotels. We want to be super associated with having delivered tangibly for our hotel customers and that whole customer obsession, because all the tech and innovation and, all that stuff only gets you so far. You really need to be super connected to what's at the end of that for your customer. And I think once you've got that sort of clarity in your business, you can then figure out, well, who do we need and what do we have and what's unique about our business and how do we encourage the stuff that's really working well. So I think the hiring and firing, hiring is one of the most difficult parts. I've always found the most difficult parts of growing and scaling the business. But I think over time I got better at recognizing when it's maybe not working and being sort of brave enough, I guess, to make that decision. and
Me too.
take those actions sooner.
You said a
later.
mouthful right there. I've
Yeah.
talked about it before. I'm terrible at hiring.
Yeah,
In my career, it's just
easy.
it's hard.
It is. It's so easy to be kind of, I guess, lazy. I mean, you've got a million things going on, and quite often you sort of, you'll want to deal with stuff that's operational and stuff that's easy, and those big weighty challenges around. Look, I just don't think this person's going to work. It doesn't serve that employee, that member of the team, or you, and it can damage culture very, very quickly. So I think it's actually, when you take that sort of perspective, you're not doing that employee any favors. You're not doing your culture any benefit whatsoever. And it becomes what should I be working on rather than the 10 emails that are easier to do on a Monday morning.
So to unpack that a little bit, or to lens it through your time at Avvio, I'm wondering if for the hiring process, what did it look like as you said you developed that skill? And what would you say is the top criteria you looked for to hire someone at Avvio?
I think that energy and passion was really key. We found, roles are different, right? You're looking for certain things in engineering, software developer. You're looking for other things, slightly different things in like sort of sales people and marketing people. But I think that, once you get an understanding of what your sort of core values are, and if you might have 3, 4, 5 core values, and once you realize that, those values are not just something that you've got, on a wall in an office, but those values are the kind of things that you'll make hiring and firing decisions around, so that if anybody in the business was to, more than once fall short of those core values, that's not going to work. Once we got clarity around what worked really well in Avvio, and we turned those into kind of very natural, organic core values, like here's who we are and here's what we do really well. How do we define that in a way that is sort of, that looks like a mission and value statement? And then how do we make sure that we only hire on that basis? And you got to sort of tease that out. I think it comes at quite a later stage of the interview selection process, where you've got to look for, is this person, okay, they tick all the boxes, but is this person going to actually fit in? Are they going to sort of blend in with the culture and the DNA of the company? I think that's probably, we didn't have, it's not black and white, but I think we definitely tried to adhere the final hire, no hire decision based on core values.
How long did it take, roughly, to define those core values for Avvio?
We sort of evolved them over time, but I think we never radically overhauled those. We were always customer obsessed. That's a phrase that we used in Avvio going back to the very, very early days. And that's the first sort of value that Avvio had. That's also the first value that SHR had. And I think around that, just being team player, being super agile, flexible, dynamic, not afraid of change, but leaning into that disruptive sort of, challenger brand, and taking ownership, being accountable. So always being the kind of person that, we all get sort of, let's say, queries from a hotel, and it might not be your sort of job to go and do that, but, not to pass the buck, but to always be that sort of, to have that accountability personally within the company. So they evolved, Adam. But I think it probably, COVID, I think, bizarrely really shifted things towards that autonomy and trust and flexibility. I think COVID went on long enough and disrupted enough that, we solved for productivity totally remotely, and whilst we trusted each other in an office context before COVID, once we saw how far the lengths that everybody went to above and beyond during COVID, I think that was probably the final evolution around culture and values.
So moving on to our next question. Frank, what are some of the common pitfalls or failures you have witnessed that business owners should look to avoid when scaling their business?
It's a long game. I think particularly in hospitality, hotels in particular, I think they're slow to adopt new technology, particularly disruptive technology, for very logical reasons, I guess. But I guess knowing that, maybe there's something also about hospitality where, Avvio didn't often hear a no from a prospect hotel. It was like they really liked what we were doing, and that maybe turned into like a 12, 18-month sales cycle in some cases because other stuff came in the way. Definitely what I see around pitfalls of companies that are relatively new in the space is that they have this super innovative technology, and along with that is an expectation that this is going to be almost an overnight success. And I think that, may be possible in this industry, but I think it's an industry that's somewhat slower to adopt new technology than perhaps other industries are. So I think that's definitely one, being realistic. The game is maybe longer than you think it's going to be for that reason. And then I think if there's another side to that coin, it would probably be just trying to learn the lessons of failing fast, not taking too much time with, new innovation, for example, failing fast. I mean, it's a cliche, no, but learning how to say no, failing fast. I think there's huge lessons in those two disciplines.
I'm always glad to hear when someone talks about how long it takes to sell into a hotel, because I always thought it was the CRS business only.
Yeah.
But I've been a part of smaller price tag, easier install software in hotels now, and it just takes a while.
It really does. I mean, I think probably the most effective sort of messaging around the Avvio value proposition was pre-COVID, where we were telling hotels that, to take our booking engine, that would come with a guarantee from us of at least a 25% increase in direct bookings. And we knew that the booking engine was great and had all the stuff, but we also knew that we were doing things differently around AI and personalized guest journey. And we just saw that and more in terms of impact. And even then, Jason, where hotels would, in a meeting, get super excited about that. And it was legit, right? We were doing that, and we were accountable for doing that. Even then, hotels would be like, okay, we're super excited about this. You think you've done a deal, and then something else just comes into that operation of the hotel that's a huge distraction, and then you hear from them in 18 months' time, and then they want to resume the conversation again. So, yeah, it's definitely a slow, long game.
I want to pick up a thread there. You mentioned the term AI, which is opening a can of worms here. But AI, failing fast to learn from it, it's really dependent on feedback data. And
right.
How do you differentiate between the feedback data of a hotel saying, come back to us in a year or 18 months or 2 years, and saying the feedback is, no, we're not interested, period, full stop?
It's a great question. I think you do get a feeling, like a human feeling in meetings, where you think it all fits, everything. There's no reason why this hotel brand can't. We've seen the data. The further you go through sort of a sales cycle, particularly our sales cycle, we'd be soliciting data around, give us your current production from OTA to direct. So I think over time we would develop a really strong sense of, okay, this hotel has a pain point, understands they have a pain point. There does seem to be a distraction, and that could come in the form of, a whole tech shakeup, like, oh, they're putting in a new PMS. So you know what? They are super interested. We do think this time, 12 months, they'll probably be back, but something else has come in that sort of distracted that. Getting a no from hotels was often sort of just the reason for us to move on. I mean, it's like, as a founder, you take all that stuff very personally. It's you're being rejected, I think, on some level, right? Your baby, everything that you've sort of built. So it's a personal rejection. And I think I certainly had a tendency early on to work harder when I was hearing a no from a customer to try and turn that around. But there isn't a good return on that effort.
So you taking failure or rejection personally for your company or product, would you have any quick advice for other founders and C-level people to not take it personally?
So for me, the big step change there was stepping back from the direct sale. Like my role with SHR as chief evangelist. I love being in the market. I love engaging with hotels. I love understanding their challenges. I'm super passionate about, the niche that we operate in, and the end results of that, I think, really do impact fundamentally asset value and hotel profitability. So I can talk about that passionately all day long at any conference. But that's not sales. That's maybe some stage of the sales cycle. I was never very good at the follow-up, the constant sort of chasing and closing out a deal. Never any good at that. And also I took this stuff very personally. So for me, when I did get the opportunity to bring a professional sales team in, A, I got to step back from that sort of rejection, but B, I let far more qualified professionals into that side of the business that also were armed with the tools that I didn't have, because they can say something when it comes to negotiating on price. They can say something about, hey, look, this is not going to fly with the board, That I could never say. I was the board for all intents and purposes. So I think those two dynamics of a professional sales team that had one or two more tools in their toolkit than I did was the real step change there.
Yeah, so it makes sense. It's you got to know your own characteristics and what strengths or what weaknesses you have, and then finding people who complement your own personal characteristics.
Yeah, I mean, back to my initial point about it being a team sport. You do, and I think not a lot of startup entrepreneurs do make that journey from startup to scale up. It requires different sort of skills, maybe different energy profile. Many do, of course, but I certainly think that there comes a point where people realize that you've got to bring far better people around you in certain disciplines. I mean, you just wear all the hats when you're an entrepreneur. My background was programming, so I was writing the code, I was the booking engine programmer, I was also sales and a bit of marketing and all the rest of it. And of course, that doesn't scale.
All right, moving on to question number 3. Frank, what do you see as the key opportunities and challenges for hospitality technology companies for the remainder of 2023 and beyond?
We're almost October now, aren't we? 23.
Yeah.
I think I will pick up the AI point here because I think it's possibly the most. Is it possible for AI to be both overhyped and underhyped at the same time? Because there's a tsunami, under our feet, and it's changing. It's changing everything, right? It'll change marketing. It'll change search. It's already changing everything in real time. But of course, it's also overhyped because everybody is jumping on this generative AI kind of bandwagon. If I talk sort of, I guess, a bit more specifically around key opportunities and challenges, I think AI is definitely an opportunity, and there are many ways that you could talk about that. But maybe one would be more around the speed to market around product development. Like there are, the AI tools that we can use to support our programming, our engineering team, our QA team. We're possibly looking at a 30-40% efficiency improvement by just giving our engineers better tools around code review and documentation and code commenting and unit testing and all the rest of it. And I think then there are many tools out there like kind of Copilot, etc. But I think where companies do start to invest in some of those strategic opportunities, I think there's possibly in the region of 30% efficiency improvement in speed of product to market. So that's not sort of an AI thing that a lot of people talk about in the market, but I think that is a strategic opportunity from a business perspective, particularly around hotel technology.
Yeah, I don't hear it enough.
Yeah,
I mean, I spoke with Oracle not too long ago, and they're so laser focused on it because they see what it can do for efficiency. And just, I mean, it's like, I don't know, is it the lean years? I mean, you got to do more with less. We all do, not just our customers. So
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And I think you're kind of, it's like just you're giving better tools to your teammates, right? So you're just giving them the best of the technology that's in the market so that they can focus on the bit that, is super valuable and super creative from their perspective. So yeah, I think huge gains to be had there. What was the other side of that question, Adam? Was it challenges or key opportunities and challenges, right? On challenges as an industry, travel tech, hotel tech, I think everyone's integrated. We've all connected, more or less. We've connected with one another from a technical connectivity perspective. One of the things we're working really hard at SHR with our Allura platform is that there's strategic connectivity or strategic integration and strategic product development. And I think companies that just connect to one another are probably going to fall behind in terms of what products should be delivering for hotels. So for example, if you take a CRM solution will typically exist as a standalone, or maybe it's a bolt onto a platform now. But CRM typically signifies standalone email marketing, segmentation, that sort of thing, customer profile management. But it should be thinking about the role that it plays in the managing of the guest journey on a website, the role that it could be playing in the top of funnel digital marketing, right? But these systems are not connecting up and not working strategically alongside one another. And I do think that there's a new wave of technology innovation happening that is either bringing multiple products together within a platform with far more strategic insight, or bringing companies together that are getting closer together to figuring out what they should jointly deliver than just connecting two products. And I think companies that are looking at integration purely from a functional perspective, I think is going to be an opportunity, as we look at 24 and beyond.
You talk about CRM in this way of connecting the upper funnel and then the pre-arrival, the entire stage of the customer journey. And I'm wondering if you could just explain a little bit further what you're seeing in terms of the territory that a CRM can cover now and what the possibilities are for connecting all this in the near future, because I just see so much potential, but I'd like for you to explain it because we're the hosts here, you're the guest.
Sure.
So what do you see as the opportunities within CRM?
Great. Well, I appreciate that. So when we think CRM, we typically think of the direct guest anyway. OTAs don't share guest contact details, and we'll try and capture that when they check in. We'll do our best, but it's not really what we think a CRM system is designed for. CRM is designed for direct relationships and maybe loyalty and that sort of thing. So if I take a step back and just talk about some of the traditional, I think the broken paradigm of the direct channel for a moment, and then I think I can sort of connect CRM in on the back of that. For me, one of the biggest errors that hotels make today is continuing to think of brand.com, their own website, as a brochure. Right, so every visitor to your website gets the same content, and you've plugged a booking engine into that brochure website. And alongside that brochure strategy is this idea of a look to book or conversion funnel, so many different things. But basically, it boils down to, on Monday we had 200 visitors and we got 2 bookings, so that's a 1% conversion rate. 98% of people didn't book. Those two things, the brochure, one-size-fits-all website, and the conversion funnel, I think are fundamentally broken, because when you look at how guests go about booking hotels, it takes time. For example, it took North American families 5 days to book London properties last summer just gone. So from the first time they hit the hotel website to when they go about a very natural, very organic travel discovery research journey, that takes 5 days. And when they book on a hotel website, they're booking on their 3rd, 4th, 5th visit to the hotel website. The conversion funnel is broken because, it wasn't 5 guests, it was Jason 5 times. And it wasn't abandonment on Monday when Jason didn't book. It was a beautiful first impression where Jason spent 5 minutes on our brand site and told us all about himself and what his interests were. And we were able to sort of nurture that relationship such that there's a very high chance now that Jason will come back when he's ready and continue that booking journey. So brand.com is first and foremost a marketing platform that's so much more powerful than just a brochure. And therefore CRM should understand, the 20 minutes of data that brand.com is handing over to the CRM about Jason. What are his interests? What content has Jason consumed? What's actually really relevant for Jason here? So yes, Jason's booked a room and that booking sits in the PMS, and that's great. Jason looks like every other guest who's booked for those dates in the PMS, no difference. But actually, here's 20 minutes of data on Jason, what his interests are, what rooms he was interested in, what particular activities or, other facilities at your hotel he was interested in. So CRMs need to, I think, take a step back and not just look at, single customer view and all that great stuff that CRMs always talk about. But a CRM is, well, who is Jason and how much data, how much insight has come into the system about Jason? And leveraging all of that such that we can, hand a record to a PMS or a CRM, not just a booking transaction, but an actual customer record for the CRM then to lean into.
So what we're talking about here is basically a systemic change, is where you have to rethink the entirety of the guest journey. When you're speaking with hotels, how do you inspire that change?
As Avvio, we've been designing websites for almost 20 years. And we've been a digital agency alongside the booking engine. We've been a full partner on brand.com for hotels with the booking engine. And we now no longer build websites that are brochures. We build personalized, hyper-personalized, guest-centric websites where every interaction that a guest has with the brand site allows that website to just further align the hotel brand with the guest. And what I've seen really inspire hoteliers is showing that in real time, showing them what a brand.com hospitality experience really looks like. And we can evidence that now. We can show them, we can walk them through the guest journey of a hotel website in real time and show them how much better they could be doing and their brand could be doing than just a brochure. I mean, how frustrating that the hospitality industry, A, just shouts book direct at every guest, and then B, if you book on a Monday and come back on a Tuesday, it's still just book direct, right? I mean, you just go to booking.com or Expedia and you'll get a far better online hospitality experience. And I think you only really need to show hoteliers an example of how that looks, and you've captured what is a very latent passion of theirs, which is to deliver better guest experience, better brand experience, for the commercial gain or just the hospitality brand experience of that. But it doesn't get much more impactful than showing a hotel what their website could look like if it stepped beyond the brochure.
Frank, our fourth and final question. What are the key things innovative leaders and entrepreneurs should prioritize and focus on to gain traction for their business?
One of the things I found very useful was to take strategy, and we did this exercise in Avvio. So I raised private equity investment into Avvio in 2014 from London. And one of the things that I worked quite hard on following that with a professional board, I guess, and building a great team around me, was this idea of, okay, everyone's got a strategy and everyone's got a 3-year plan, but in a very straightforward, exercise, you can turn that 5-year strategy into a right to left plan. And this is very well documented and it's so easy to do, but it's like, well, if we're going to be here in 3 years, then where were we in 2 years? And you're just sort of stepping back. How did we get there? You're making it real. You're calling it into a real high fidelity version of your strategy. Well, if that's true in 3 years, what was true in 2 and 18 months and 12 months? And therefore, what do we need to do now in order to get us where we need to be in 18 months? And you constantly sort of work and rework and check and test against that plan. And I think if your strategy was right, because you're going to deliver whatever it was you set. But if you've nailed the strategy, then you've got a far better chance at that outcome, because stuff is just is pretty relentless in business, isn't it? There's a million things to do every day, and nobody likes being lazy. We're all going to get stuff done, but are we working on the right things at the right time? Are we building the team at the right time in order to get us where we need to be? So I think that it's a very simple, I'm sorry it's not more inspired, but I think strategy tied to what internally we used to call a right to left plan. So let's just walk it back and document what needs to be the case in 3 months, 6 months, 12, 18, 2 years, 3 years, in order for us to execute that. And I think the very next lesson that follows there are the metrics around that. Well, what do we need to be tracking in order for us to know that we're on schedule or on track? What are the key metrics in our business that we're going to consider to be the heartbeat? There are metrics. Everybody's got loads of metrics, but we're going to value these metrics, 5 to 10 metrics, whatever it might be in your business. We're going to value these above all else, and we're going to make those visible across the whole organization. And I think you mentioned traction. I think that sort of implies that you're then going to use some sort of a structured operating system to sort of conduct the routine of running the business. And there are a few operating systems out there like that. The executive entrepreneurial operating system, I think, is a good one. But I think just the habits around, how do you do weekly meetings? How do you communicate? How do you share across teams and departments on our way to delivering on this plan?
Well, what does that look like practically, holding yourselves accountable to these metrics? Rarely does it pan out like you planned 3 years before.
Yeah, totally.
And that requires, right? It requires, it's like, okay, that didn't happen and that didn't happen. That did.
Yeah.
What are we going to do? And
exactly.
Is that like a quarterly check, and then there's like this accountability meeting in a shift, or what's that look like?
Well, I think, my background, I think I mentioned earlier, but my background was computer programming. And one of the things I really loved discovering about computer programming and sort of agile and, methodologies like that was just the rigor of the retrospective. And it's like, hey, okay, we smashed out another release, or, we iterated through another build, but now let's take the time to look at what's gone well and what's not gone well. So this constant pursuit on how can we be better? We look for that. We want people to talk about that. So I think when you sort of ingrain that level of candor across the organization. We want to hear from people. Nobody's perfect individually, collectively, professionally. Nobody's there yet, but we're hungry to be better all the time. I think that's a really important part of it. But I do think that there is a confidence that is downstream of having the plan, having a very structured, methodical, let's say it's the 3-year strategy, and you've walked it back and you've figured out your metrics. You get a far earlier heads up on what's kind of going awry than I think you otherwise would. 2 degrees off course when you're crossing the Atlantic is going to take you somewhere else, right? But learning that early on. So I think systems like that really work. I think they're intuitive, they're logical, people buy in. And I think when you sort of ingrain those kind of things in your business, then people are sort of keen on identifying what the data says and just adapting to it. I think boards love it. It's not subjective. It's not irrational. It's just this is what the market's telling us, and we think we should ignore that and wait a bit longer, or we think we should make a change. But the structure and rigor of it all, I think, just brings people with you.
Frank, I think that's a great place to end it, because we want to give people some time to think about just developing a 3-year plan, which is so critical, and it's something that you could spend a whole month working on that document just to refine it and then break it down. So I think that's a perfect way to end it. Did you have any final thoughts or any final comments?
No, not really. I would just, I guess, go back to my initial comment on the team sport. I think this is, you can start a business on your own, but you can't scale a business on your own. This really is a team sport. So it's about finding the right people. It's about building trust. It's about, demonstrating that you trust these people. And hopefully, if, you get the tailwinds behind you, you're giving yourself the best chance of success if you can build the culture that helps to foster.
Great. Frank, can't thank you enough for coming on.
Thank you so much, Adam. Thank you, Jason.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for listening to the Gain Momentum podcast. To stay up to date, make sure to follow or subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. For more information about Gain Advisors, head to gainadvisors.com.